This week on Melanated Conversations, we get personal. Our dear co-host and my amazing cousin, Terrian Jones, shares her personal story of how one act changed the trajectory of her life. She shares in on her experience of shame, guilt, anger, forgiveness, and acceptance, and offers sound advice for others that may share in on a similar experience. We originally recorded another version of this episode last season, but the timing for release wasn't right until now. So I encourage you to listen with an open heart as my cousin opens hers to the world.
Welcome to Melanated Conversations, our narrative from our perspective.
Here on the podcast, we are amplifying the voices of Black women and sharing their powerful stories of transformation.
I'm Terrian.
And I'm Yana. Let's start the show. Welcome back to another episode of Melanated Conversations. I am your co-host, Yana.
And I'm your co-host, Daria.
Welcome, y'all, back to the show.
Yes.
So today is a very special day and a very special episode. Well, you know, all of our episodes are special, but this one is special in its own unique way. As you guys remember last season, I personally shared about my personal story of health scares and depression and the things that I experienced over the past few years and how, you know, I navigated through that. And how I realized through, you know, telling that story, I realized the strength of my own voice and story. Well, today, my good friend here and favorite cousin and co-host.
I was like friend.
I'm sorry, can I be in it?
I mean, we friends, but girl, we more than friends.
Yeah. My everything.
Well, I ain't got to be all that. I'll take it though.
No, we are, Terrian is actually going to be pulling back the curtains to share a little of her personal story.
Yeah.
And before we actually go into that, I just want to say, I encourage you to listen with an open heart and mind, free of judgment. Terrian is doing something very beautiful and brave by sharing, you know, the vulnerable parts of her. And I just respectfully ask, as her fan, friend, and family member, is that better, Terrian?
I like all of them. Fan, friend, family, friendly.
Yeah. But I respectfully ask that you respect her and this space, or discontinue listening now. Simple as that.
She said what she said.
But now, you know, that we got our pleasantries out of the way, I want to re-welcome you all to our guest of the show today, my rider, my right hand, Terrian Jones.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Thank you. I like that little intro you gave, and I'm feeling the disclaimer because I would hate to see it. I would really hate to see somebody try to come for me after this episode airs. I really would. I would really hate for it.
Oh, you ain't got a word.
I know. That's you ain't got to come see me. Not for me. That's what I'm talking about. I feel sorry for whoever tried. No, thank you so much for that quick little intro. And yeah, like Yana said, you know, I'm pulling back the curtain today, and I will be sharing a portion of my story, a little memoir, if you want to be technical, I guess you could say. But we'll be having a little story time. And as Yana just pointed out as well, you know, with this platform, and even with a lot of the work that she does with her platform, you know, really learning the importance of voice has been inspiring for me to watch other women come on the show and share their stories and their vulnerabilities and all those different things. And then really understanding the importance of my voice, because here's the truth of the matter. Something that I've learned from using my voice, a lot of times we all have parts of our lives that are not pretty. And at some point, did you go through those things? You have to ask yourself, did I go through these things, and there was no purpose behind it? I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think that there was a purpose behind the things that you've gone through and have been able to come out on the other side. If it was nothing but a lesson for yourself, you know what I'm saying, to do better. And then most importantly, I think to be able to share that with someone else, so that either they don't make that same mistake or they can learn, you know what I mean? Or they get to know you on a deeper level and say, oh, okay, this person isn't like all mirrors and fluff. You know what I'm saying? Like this person has some depth to them. And so definitely, and also not only that, but you taught me this, when you tend to stifle your voice, you're not harming anybody else but yourself, right? You kind of place yourself in a cage and you're like I feel trapped type of thing. And it's like, well, you're not using your voice. You're not sharing your story. You're not sharing parts of yourself. And then in turn with that too, when you're not doing that, not only are you harming yourself, but you may be missing out on sharing that with someone that God has placed in your path. So that's definitely something that I have learned here within the last year, I think, because Yana and I had talked about this almost a year ago. And she was like, you need to share this. I was like, okay, I think I'll share it. Okay, I understand. I need to share it.
But I said in your timing, though.
You did.
I know how it takes. It's a process because when you experience that, and sometimes you can't do it in that moment because you're still feeling the feels, and it there is a mourning there. There's a whole process to accepting your story enough to where you aren't affected anymore. I don't want to say aren't affected anymore, but when you finally get to a space where you're ready to share it, you're the keeper of your own story. So if you become acquainted with it and what anyone throws at you, really can't top what you haven't accomplished within your own self. I don't know if that makes sense. I was trying to.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Also, one more thing before I go into the story part, just in talking about my purpose and what I truly believe everyone's purpose is. But this is just specifically, I think, from my Christian worldview. I believe that because every human being is created, that we are created for a purpose. And our number one purpose is to know God, to love him, to serve him, and to serve others, and to make him famous. And so what I mean by when I say make him famous, meaning like even through the things that we go through in life, those things aren't, when the good and even when the bad things happen, when we're able to come out of those things victorious, it's not because of our own work. It's not because of our own doing. It's truly because of him. And so for me to take credit for those things, that's not fair. The creator, the one who created me, I have to give honor and glory to. So I definitely think that even in this story that you'll hear, that at the end of the day, it's not about me or any of the other parties. It's really about redemption. So yeah.
All right.
If you hear my voice shaking as well, this is the first time. This is not the first time that I've shared this story with individual people, but this is my first time sharing this part of my story with on the internet, in the world, with you know what I'm saying, on a big platform like this. So if you're hearing the shakes in my voice, yes, I am very nervous. But I feel like what's the quote? Like, speak even if your voice shakes type of thing. Like that's what's gonna happen. So
Yeah, we're gonna get through this. Let's kind of start off a little bit about you.
yeah.
Tell us a little about your origin story. Where are you from?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm from born and was yeah technically born and raised in Little Rock, Arkansas / North Little Rock. And yeah, so I was raised actually by my grandmother. My mom died when I was 3, almost 4. She died in a car accident, and so my grandmother had guardianship of me, and so she raised me from year 3 on up until I left home. And so, yeah, definitely had a good life and was surrounded by all the things. My grandmother tried to make sure she exposed me to as much stuff as possible. So I did, the dance and the gymnastics and the Girl Scouts and the cheerleading and the piano lessons and anything you could think of. She just really tried to make sure that I was exposed to as many things as possible. So yeah, I mean, I think that's. Oh, and of course, church was huge, a huge part of my upbringing, my background, and all those things. So definitely spent more than one day a week at church. I'll say that.
You know all about that life.
Man. But yeah, overall, I think I had a good life. I had a good life. There are definitely bits and pieces in there that, we may talk about at another time, but there was a solid foundation that was laid for the most part. I had a relationship with my dad. I didn't live with my dad. Obviously, Jan and I are cousins. But that's my dad's side of the family.
Yes.
But I didn't live with him. I didn't grow up, you know what I'm saying, seeing my dad every day. So that definitely impacted me as well. I technically grew up as an only child, although I have siblings, from my dad's side, but I technically grew up as an only child. So learn how to share. Ooh, that was hard.
We spent many of summers and times together as kids and holidays. So you were like the sister that I always wanted because I'm the only girl. I wanted a sister, someone that I can kind of share in that, experience together growing up. So
yeah.
I latched on to Terrian. I don't know if she.
I latched back.
I was like, I don't know if I'm thinking back on that. I was like, I wonder if I was one of them bugging cousins. Like, man,
no.
I'm just like, man, just come on.
No, not at all. Not at all. No. Are you kidding me? The funny thing is, I'm gonna get back into my story. But the other day we were outside. We went walking, and the girls were riding their bikes, whatever. And my oldest child is, she's different. She's just different from the standpoint of she really immerses herself in information, and she's very black and white about things, and she's not super. It's weird because she is adventurous in the most odd times. You'd be like, you think, oh, she's never going to do that, and she's like, she's diving head first into stuff. But for the most part, she's very cautious, right? And so anyway, they're riding their bikes, and I think my youngest daughter kept like maybe either getting in front of her. And so in her mind, she's like, she keeps getting in my way, so I can't get around her. Like just really just being extra dramatic. And then she starts to kind of get in her head, and she's like, it's hot out here. I just want to go back to the house. I don't even want to ride my bike anymore, type of thing. And we're riding down a hill or walking down a hill. They're riding down a hill. And I was like, we're almost home. Like me and my husband were like, she's like, you got to chill. Yeah. Like you're making this more than you're making this so complicated. You're making this not enjoyable. And Dre goes, I don't know where she get that from. And I was like, I ain't gonna hold you. I said, I think I might have an idea where she may get some of that from. I said, I think she gets some of it from me. I said, here's the thing though. I said, I had to quickly learn and adapt and adjust. I said, because the summers and the Christmases and the holidays that I spent in Brinkley, it was either you gonna either get in and you gonna be a daredevil and we gonna do all the fun, crazy country stuff, or you gonna sit at the house by yourself.
You gonna get in or get left.
That was it. That was it. And I was like, so I had to learn how to adjust real quick. I was like, I was the quote unquote city cousin, but I had to learn to get country real fast. And I was like, I said, I think so. That definitely played to my advantage, where for her, like she hasn't had a lot of those experiences to where, you get right or you get left type of thing. And I was like, so I had to get pushed. She hasn't necessarily she didn't get indoctrinated like I did. But I was telling him about that the other day. I was like, yeah, man, with Boo and Guido, like that was a different.
Yeah, man.
It was either you gonna get with the it's, you ain't.
So let's talk about, let's kind of hop into you getting to this space of, wanting to share your story and also telling us a little bit kind of what you're wanting to share today.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier when we first started the episode, there was definitely some encouragement from you and a few other people of just knowing that this part of my story needs to be shared because, like I said, you never know how it may impact someone else, or someone else being like, oh my gosh, that's my story too. The time has come for me to be able to share this. I recently went through I guess you could say a Bible study about a year ago. It was a year ago, about a year ago. And it helped tremendously. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in depth. But then I was also able to help walk some women through the study again this past spring, and got to watch the transformation happen for them. So, I find myself my senior year in high school. I'm 17 years old, getting ready to graduate, go off to college in the fall. And basically, long story short, I find out that I'm pregnant. And let me just say this as well. The other parties that played a role in this, I don't want to focus so much on necessarily who these people were, not the who or the, you know what I'm saying? It's
more about you. You're telling.
Yes, not villainizing. Yes, exactly. Not villainizing these individuals at all. Okay. So anyway, I find myself pregnant, and now I am faced with the question. I'm at a crossroads. Now, for me personally, I was like, the idea of quote unquote options was not an option for me. In my head, in my mind, that was just how I felt. I'm not going down that road. Okay. And the father of the child, who is not my husband, and my husband is well aware of this story. But he also felt the same way. We were keeping this baby. Okay. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, because I think at the time, and I don't know state laws and all that different stuff now, but I know in certain states, the law has to be, when it comes to terminating a pregnancy, if you're a certain age, if you're under 18, you have to have like a legal guardian or someone like sign off on that. Or something like that. And so in my case, the option was, we are not having this baby. You're not going to have this baby. You have too much stuff going on in your life. You're getting ready to go off to college. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. We can't do this. And I fought tooth and nail. But unfortunately, because I was technically still a minor, the decision was made for me. Right. And I remember so when you get to the clinic, and even then, like, it's so funny thinking back, like sitting in the clinic, and I'm sitting in an abortion clinic, and I'm still saying to myself, I'm still not having it. Like, I'm not terminating this pregnancy. Like, I don't care who
I'm here, but you still not about to, make me do what I don't want to do.
Exactly. Digging my heels in. But I remember, like, they take you back, and they want to confirm the pregnancy. So they do an ultrasound, and like, it's like, okay, now you're rubbing salt in the wound. Okay. Cause now you're confirming a pregnancy. You're playing heartbeats. You're showing me baby on a monitor. So this is real. And so of course, I was like, well, I'm definitely not terminating still at this point.
Do you know how far you were at this point?
I think I was about 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think. I was about 6 weeks, somewhere between the 4 and 6 week mark. After they do the ultrasound, then you go back. They took me into another room where you speak with a counselor or something like that. And their job, I mean, without trying to get, controversial or political, but their job is to make money, right? And their job is to convince you to go through with this procedure. And so, she threw every dart at me to try to convince me to break. And she did. She broke me. At a certain point. And I was just kind of like, you know what? Because everybody around me seems to think they know what's best for me. And
so
there's
pause for a second. I'm sorry.
Sure,
I don't mean to
yeah.
cut you off, but
No, you're fine.
okay. So you're in the room with a counselor, and rather than to kind of hear you understand your story or how you feel, she or he, I don't know if it was a female
It was a
or
she.
male.
It was a she. It was a
So
woman.
she went with the approach to just automatically making that decision for you. Like,
well, it was, okay, so now we've confirmed, okay. And the question was asked, do you want to go through with this? Of course, I'm like, no. Okay, well, let's talk about why you don't want to go through this. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? I hear you're going to college in the fall. I hear da-da-da-da-da. You've got so much going on.
oh, so she was doing it in a way she was basically saying it without saying it.
Yes. Yeah. Very nuanced. Very, very nuanced. Almost like this is for the betterment of you. This is going to work out better in your favor if you go through with this. And I want to say this also. And this is my personal conviction, my personal feelings about this, because I've heard other women say, the nurses or the doctors say this, don't worry about this. It'll all be over soon. That's a lie. That's a lie, because the truth of the matter is you never forget that moment. You never, ever forget that moment. And you think about that child for the rest of your life. Okay. So it's not a one and done type of thing. Okay. So that's a lie that I think so many women end up getting pulled into. And I don't care what your beliefs are. If you are quote unquote pro-choice or pro-life or whatever you call yourself, the truth of the matter is I truly believe it's a lie, because no matter if it's over in a few moments and you can go on about life afterwards, in your heart and in your mind, you never forget about that moment. Okay. So anyway, so at this point, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, like I said, everybody is like, we basically made this decision for you. And so I'm like, okay, so I guess this is what I'm doing, because I feel like I've gotten backed into a corner and I'm going to go through with this. So all reluctancy, I go through the procedure. And I've heard other stories from other women. Like I said, everyone's experience is different. Thank God, for whatever reason, I do not remember the procedure itself. I remember waking up from it. Some women are not as, I don't want to say lucky, but some women are not as fortunate, and they either wake up from procedure or they are wide awake when the procedure happens. And so thank God that I did not have that experience. I just remember going to sleep and then waking up and then being rolled out to the car. And, of course, like I am like very sad. And I guess you could say in some ways was very depressed. I remember getting back to the house and just like going to bed and not wanting to talk to anybody, not wanting to eat, not wanting to be bothered or any of that stuff. It's funny too. At the time I was working in the motherhood maternity store. And I remember, I think maybe a day or two after I went back to work, but they gave me some sort of medicine I had to take. It may have been like antibiotics or something like that. And I remember getting sick at work and like having to go back home. Just from everything. But anyway, just kind of leading up. So after that experience is over, like I'm kind of dead inside, if that makes sense. So I'm dead inside. And it's something I really didn't realize until like within the last couple of years. Cause after that happened, like, yeah, I kind of went on like I wasn't happy about it. My relationship ended. And I just kind of started just going through life and just doing like whatever, not even realizing. So not realizing that I was kind of self-medicating in a
Mhm.
way,
Mhm.
if that makes sense,
No,
you
that
know?
absolutely makes sense. And
Yeah.
because it kind of, I feel like, because I share in the space of, when decisions are made on behalf of you. And
Mm-hmm.
because I think we've talked about this numerous of times, of how that changed the trajectory of who we are and our behaviors. And sometimes we catch ourselves in this life now reacting certain ways when we feel like someone is trying to insert their opinion on us or make us do a certain thing that we don't
Yes.
want to do. It takes us back to this place. And so even, especially in that experience, because that was a big life decision, big life altering decision, and ultimately something that you personally have to, you had to and still do live with throughout your life. And, that leaves a stain on you. So that moment, I mean, I'm not trying to project this on you. I would say
Yeah.
it was probably one of those pivotal times that changed the core of your character, if that makes
Yeah. Oh man, absolutely, absolutely. It's so, and like I said, a lot of this stuff, the whole hindsight is 2020. No pun to
right.
the year 2020, which has been trash, by the way. But that saying is true because I look back and I see how I would sabotage relationships,
Mm,
individuals with friends, like anybody, and not consciously sabotage,
right.
but sabotaged enough to where like I would build a relationship or a friendship with someone, but at the same time, like I gotta keep you like in a certain space because either number one, I've seen tendencies to where I think you may possibly hurt me, or I don't know if you will or not. And so just to be sure, I'm gonna do something trash to like make sure you don't hurt me first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And realizing like that stemmed a lot of that stemmed, I think, from that moment. Because the truth of the matter is, I felt like individuals in my life who, at the time, I felt like should have protected me. They
Mm,
didn't. They took, and here's back to the whole voice thing. They took my voice away from me,
mm,
right? And in that moment, when I was at that crossroads, I felt like I was using my voice so loud, and it was getting drowned out. It was like, honey boo, it don't matter what you saying. This is going to happen. Okay. This is going to happen. And so I think there's a part of me that was like, okay, so whatever I say doesn't matter. And so therefore, either like I said, I'm gonna sabotage relationships just to make sure you don't hurt me, or I got into like a ugly scope of not speaking up for
mm,
myself, ironically, because it was like, well, if I speak up, there's a possibility that you're gonna knock down or blow over whatever I'm saying. So I might as well not say anything at all. You
right.
know what I'm saying? And so I think that harmed me in a lot of ways too over the course of life, where I probably should have spoken up for myself in certain situations and I didn't. So yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, okay, you've, of course, those course of events have taken place. Now you've gone off to college and you're, quote unquote, full-fledged adult now. How did your life unfold for you? Like how were you, quote unquote, coping? Not necessarily, because a lot of this too, I'm pretty sure it came to you through you. It wasn't things that you were just thinking. You probably weren't thinking about that event anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but you're reacting still to that event. So kind of walk us through what that looked like as going through your adult years, your early adult
Yeah.
years, and how you were, navigating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I want to go back for a minute because this is going to lead into what I'm about to say. So remember earlier when I talked about the lie of believing, oh, this is basically for your betterment. It'll be over with and you can go on with life. I
Right.
remember like hitting the fall of that year and going off to school. And it really started, it's crazy. As much as I fought tooth and nail to not have to go through that, after it was over with, I found myself being like, well, maybe it was beneficial for me. Like, I have all these freedoms. I'm allowed to do all these things. I don't have to worry about, being a mother, and I can kind of go on with my life and not have to worry about that. So maybe that was like not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy enough. I actually kind of started to believe that lie that was told to myself. And so, like I said, in the process, I'm going through life, and I feel like I did a lot of really dumb stuff, like just foolish stuff. And, like I said, had relationships with people that that just, it's crazy, because as much as I was like, oh, like, before you hurt me, I'm gonna hurt you type of thing, I still would find myself in those kind of reckless situations. You know what I'm saying? Thank God, though, I made friendship. I made friends and built friendships with individuals who I'm still very close friends with to this day, that know this part of my story. And I think that was nobody but God, and everybody else got left in the wind. You know what I'm saying? But the truth of the matter is, like I said, even though I got to a point where I was just kind of like doing life and kind of going through, every once in a while, like, then what starts to creep up in the back of my head? Oh yeah, I was pregnant. I had a baby that I don't have anymore. And then these milestones start to kind of like tick up in your head. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, year one. Okay. And it's like, that goes by, a couple of years go by. It's like, oh man, I would have a kid that would be starting kindergarten soon. Okay. That's weird. Okay. Another milestone. Oh my gosh, I would have a 10-year-old. Oh my gosh. And now to the point, like, so this year I would have my child would have been 17.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, it's crazy, you know what I'm saying, to think that I'd have a teenager right now. Like, that is just absolutely like, that's crazy to me.
Did you seek counseling or?
No. And Lord, no. And we talk about this a lot too. The idea of, like, especially in the Black community, not seeking counseling and not going through counseling for whatever reasons, either because we just don't even have the knowledge of thinking, oh, I should probably go to counseling for this, or thinking like, well, that's not something you go to counseling for, or I just don't need counseling. Right. And not realizing, like, this the truth of the matter is that experience is a very traumatic event. It causes severe trauma. So much so that studies have shown, like, there is PTSD that women actually get from that experience. And so for some women, like, even the idea of like going to a dentist and hear drilling noises, they can't deal with it, because it relates back to that moment for some women. So anyway, so no, I never even considered the idea of counseling. And here's the thing, like I said, I just tried to cope with it. But here's the other side of that. While we talk about me sabotaging relationships, I also had started digging this well of anger as well in my heart. I think initially I knew what it was. And then after a while, I was kind of like, okay, I'm over it, type of thing. But I started digging a well of anger and kind of resentment in my heart towards the individuals that played a role in me going through this process. You know what I mean? Forcing my hand in this. And for years, definitely had a lot of anger and resentment towards people, towards family members. Like I said, I didn't realize it, and it really until last year, which I'll talk about the study here in a minute. That's where some of my anger and the idea of my voice being taken away from me and not being able to speak up for myself and advocate for myself that stemmed from that one event.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, so like I said, I'm kind of going through life, and I'm thinking at this point, I'm married, we're having children, and life is good. But at the same time, like, I'm still not forgetting about this child in the back of my head, like, at all. Like, this baby does not go away. But I'm still, I'm saying, the Lord was still kind of gracious to me, not kind of, the Lord was still gracious to me to still allow me to have children, raise children, have a family. So our church, every year, I think it's like in January, something like that. And it's usually kind of nationwide too. But a lot, it's called like Sanctity of Life Sunday, right? Where you just recognize what it says, the sanctity of life, like how precious life is, in particular when it comes to the life of unborn babies. Our pastor gets up, and it's so funny because it's like, it always throws you off guard because you never really realize, oh, it's Sanctity of Life Sunday until you're sitting in the sanctuary and your pastor gets up and he just kind of maybe, gives a few brief words, and never in a way to where it makes, and never from a convicting place or a shame or guilt place, but just overall, just talking about how life is precious, right? And it would always stir up something in me. It's like, oh, it's like, I hate this feeling, like, oh. And then it's like, do other people see my face? Like, do other people see, like, my eyes watering? Like, I'm just kind of uneasy, shifting in my chair type of thing. Like, is it just me? Am I the only, you know what I'm saying? Like, all these things are like going through my head. It's like, I wish you wouldn't do this. Why? Like, can I get a warning or something? Somebody let me know. Is it Sanctity of Life Sunday? What's going on? So I can at least prepare myself, put my finger up, walk to the bathroom, do something. And then I'll come back in when this is all over with. Anyway, so that was becoming like a, every year, I think in January, that was a thing.
Tell us a little bit about the study, how you got involved, and your experience.
Yeah. So like I was just saying, our church would always recognize Sanctity of Life Sunday. And so our women's ministry leader, for whatever reason, like, this one particular study kept kind of popping up, or not necessarily that, but the subject matter of abortion kept popping up. And so she was just like, if the statistics are true, and knowing how many women we had in our church, that there are a handful of women, there are quite a few women in here that this may be their story, right? And how do we walk women through this? Because the truth of the matter is, the church has not done the best job in addressing these type of issues. The church will preach fire and brimstone when it comes to these topics, but no one is addressing the women who have either faced this issue, are facing this, or more likely who have faced this issue, and this is their life post-abortion. And so then if you've got someone who stands in the pulpit or is picketing, saying you're going to hell, you're a murderer, all these different things, well, what am I supposed to do with that information?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and not that this topic is supposed to make you feel good, better, whatever. But at the same time, it's like, this is not helpful. You know what I'm saying? And this is not productive in any form or fashion to condemn someone for the choices that they've made.
Right. Particularly for some, that, especially like in your case, that we're kind of forced.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, you're good. I was just saying, they just didn't have a voice in this decision. So.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the other thing and like I said, when I kind of start talking about the study here in a second, it's not even just the people who felt like they didn't have a voice in the situation. Even the women who willfully chose to make this decision.
Right.
It's not fair for them either, for you to beat them over the head. Okay. And so anyway, she knew she just felt like there's got to be there's got to be a way to tackle this topic to provide healing for women who have experienced this. And so she did a research, she came across a study, she vetted it. I along with the other few people vetted it. Unbeknownst to her, we vetted it, and that was every one of our stories. And so in the process of just kind of vetting to see if this was something we wanted to bring to the church, we were obviously all in agreement. And so she goes, well, before we bring this to the church, you're going to have to actually physically go through the actual study itself, like video, book, all do the work. You got to do the work. So then last summer, 8 weeks of in-depth, like hard work of going through just, facing your story, how it's made you feel, how God views you, how God views the situation, and then what happens after, you know what I'm saying, after that. And so for me, I was able to pinpoint the things that I've been talking about as far as me feeling like my voice was taken and me not being able to advocate for myself, me being angry. And the hypocrisy on my part in the fact that if I consider myself to be a Christian, two things. How could I not forgive someone else for a transgression against me? Number one, if I say that Jesus is my savior. And number two, because I claimed for him to be my savior and he offers me forgiveness, then that's absolute. And I'm following in his footsteps. How dare I not offer forgiveness to someone else? And the other thing in that with forgiveness is that forgiveness does not mean that, you know what I mean? Like the parties have to interact with each other. It really is that you hear people always talking about like forgiveness really is for you. As an individual, because the truth of the matter is I'm holding on to this anger, this rage of you should have done this and you should have, or why didn't you, and da da da. And it's like the other person's kind of moved on with life and I'm still stuck in a rut, kind of being like, you know what you did to me type of thing. And it's like, no, you got to move on. You got to forgive. And it doesn't mean that you forget.
Right.
It does not mean that you forget ever. You don't ever forget, because then if you forget, then you can find yourself in a similar situation where someone may, you know what I mean, put you in a vulnerable position and you end up doing something that you regret. But it does mean that you let those feelings of hate and anger, you let them go. You really have to release them. And then on the other side of that, just remembering that number one, that the life that is no longer here, it is still very much precious. And it was important, which it was a very hard process for me to do, but to personify the baby. So to like give the baby a name and to kind of pray and ask the Lord if he would reveal like maybe what the baby's gender was and all those type of things, and being like, okay, let's look at like the bright side of this. So what can we take away from this situation, even though your child is not physically here with you? As a believer, then I believe that my child is in heaven. So then my child doesn't even have to deal with all the nonsense that's going on, you know what I mean, down here. But just being able to really give my baby, a name and all those different things, and properly eulogize their life, and then say, okay, well, what does life look like going forward? And how do I deal with the triggers that I know that I have? Because that doesn't mean my triggers won't go away, but to recognize them, and how do I deal with my triggers from here on out? And so it was extremely wonderful experience. There were weeks that were like super hard. And I was just like, I think I think it was around the time we were like setting up the podcast too. And I was just like, this
let's just have a moment.
Yeah. Like this sucks.
But honestly though, and I don't know if I shared this, we may have talked about it, but when you were going through that study, because you were kind of, you wouldn't tell me like all like the fullness of the study, but you'll tell me
Yes.
personally, like how you felt that week or some of the hard things that you're having to deal with. And, I remember in that moment because like that was around the time too, where I was just getting to a point where in my own story that I was getting ready to, open up and, and share my story and, and quit hiding behind my own voice. And I remember you telling me and sharing some things and it clicked for me. And, while our situations weren't the same, our experiences kind of paralleled. And I saw so much through you and just how, I personally learned through the journey that you were going through. And it helped me to kind of navigate and understand and recognize like, you got to let some things go, or also, being open enough to share, because we talked about this, sharing with our spouses, like why we react in certain ways and not just being short and, because we can get real short and be like, just leave me alone or just, we can, and sometimes we can fight fire with fire, but having to let them in on it because they weren't a part of our lives during those life altering moments. Recognizing that it wasn't unfair to, dish things out on them out of things that we were still reeling from that happened to us well before them. So
absolutely.
We talked a lot about that, but even, as you were going through this, it helped me too.
Oh man. Yes.
But I wanted to ask you, what was what was like a light bulb moment for you while you were doing the study? Like what was one thing that like shook you, that opened your eyes in a new way to something, or, just changed your thought process?
But really, I think the triggers for me, which you were just kind of talking about this too, like even with my husband, certain conversations we would have, and my husband is bullheaded, right? He's a Taurus, just like you.
Hey.
My husband has a very strong, he's very opinionated, and he will stick to his guns. You know what I'm saying? And for me, it was triggering for me, and I didn't know it obviously until I got into a certain week of the study. It was like, yo, this makes so much sense. Why this would send me off into like I would flip out or be so upset in a conversation that we're having or a disagreement or whatever. Because it took me back to that place where I felt like my voice was being taken away from me and you're not listening to me. And it's like, we're supposed to be in this together. We're supposed to have each other's back. You ain't got my back right now. And it wasn't, and not you don't agree with me, but you're not listening to me. You know what I'm saying? The idea of feeling like I'm not being heard. Woo! Like that, you know what I'm saying? Like at least acknowledge what I'm saying is impacting you in some sort of way, instead of me speaking and I'm feeling like you just not trying to hear nothing I'm saying. And
right. Or the other part of that, feeling like you're not hearing me out, you just go straight to try to fix the situation.
Fix it. Yeah. That part. So that was definitely a huge breakthrough, which is ironic because you think, but the study was about, you know what I'm saying, like the effects and trauma of abortion. And that really has nothing to do with abortion, but it had everything to do with my abortion story,
right?
That led up to, you know what I'm saying, like that event happening. And so and that's not to take away from the act itself that, you know what I'm saying, like definitely affected me. But thank the Lord, like I said, there are some things that I did not experience through that process that you know what I'm saying, sounds and smells and all this. I didn't have those experiences. Thank the Lord. So a lot of that other traumatic type of stuff, that's not part of my story. Here's something I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about right now. And, with my two girls, when I was pregnant with them, And I remember like confirming both, going to the doctor, and they confirmed both pregnancies with ultrasounds. And both times like I got ultrasounds with them, and like I like broke down, like got the ultrasounds and got to hear the heartbeat. And the moment I got to hear the heartbeat, like I lost it. And now I'm thinking about it, I think that is honestly linked to that moment when I had my first ultrasound when I was 17, and I got to see the baby and hear the baby's heartbeat. Like I just had that kind of like, and not but that's sort of a trigger, because I was like, especially with the second baby, I was like, why am I doing this again? Like, girl, we know, like, okay, we see a baby, it's a heartbeat, okay, great. But like the emotion that overwhelmed me both times, I'm wondering if that was like even linked, you know what I'm saying,
Oh,
to
yeah.
that. Yeah, that first time. That's crazy. I just kind of had that epiphany or whatever. I don't know.
So now you've basically entered into the study again, not as a participant, but as someone who's guiding through the study. Was there anything different that you recognized and learned, as basically going through this again, as well as guiding others through this journey too?
Yeah. So, had the honor of being able to help walk some women through this study this past spring. And, a few things that I've learned from this, like helping walk other women through it. The emotions, they don't necessarily change for you, if that makes sense. The emotions for yourself don't necessarily change. You have a different outlook, but that hurt, and not from the experience itself, but the hurt from the loss of a child, like that's still there. So that doesn't go away. And then you just realize like how deeply you feel for other women who that's part of their story too. And so everything that they feel, or even if it's like, okay, that wasn't my experience, like you're able to relate so deeply with them. And it's weird. I can't explain it. But it's also really cool to watch like week by week and remembering like how you felt, like not knowing what you're walking into the next week, in the next week, or what we were going to be talking about or having to do the next week, and seeing like the trepidation and the I don't want to be here, I don't want to come back next week, or I hate this is stupid, like all of those, like the process, like watching them go through and be like, okay, clearly I was not crazy, and I wasn't just being a turd, you know what I'm saying, for feeling a certain way while I was going through it. Like these are this is a real process that you're going through, and to watch other women go through that. So it's like comforting to know like it wasn't just me.
Were all the women, and of course we're being respectful of the women, we're not going to just share any of their story or anything, but just this is just focused more on the study itself. For individuals going through the study, are they all required to have this experience, or is it just for those who also want to support those who've gone through this experience?
Yeah, so it is literally only for women who have had this experience, and with the exception of our women's ministry leader, this is not a part of her story at all, but she does lead women's ministry. So she's the only exception. But once again, you have to talk. You do have to consider that. And number one, not everyone is not. I'm not going to say not everyone, but if it is helpful if it's just women, that have gone through the experience. Because like I said, even though everybody's experience is different, and the reasons for why they chose to make this choice are different, there's like a commonality of, like I said, the loss of a child and really wanting to heal from that. It's just different. It's just a different type of thing. But the other thing I was going to say about just watching or kind of being there through the process with women walking through the study, it was cool to see the freedom that happened on the other side of it too. And then those women, quote unquote, finding their voice and being like, okay, like now I can, you know what I'm saying? Some people are like, well, I don't think, it's for me to go to, shout from the mountaintops about my story. But some women were like, man, now I know what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, or how this can play an intricate part in how I, you know what I'm saying, I may communicate with other women about certain things. So it's just cool to see the freedom that happened. You go from trepidation and not want to do it to like kind of flying off the mountaintops with wings, soaring is real cool to watch happen.
Amazing.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Very cool.
Where do you feel like you would be right now if you didn't necessarily have this avenue, if you didn't go through this process of this study, as well as maybe even the other women?
Yeah. I think that really the freedom in being able to, I think, unashamedly share my story and once again use my voice regardless of how I may, you know what I'm saying, may be nervous about it or whatever, but really finding freedom on the other side of it and just knowing that I'm able to help someone else. And not only that, but every time I share my story, it's a release for me. Every single time it's a release for me. So the idea that if I hadn't gone through the study, that I may still be locked in the cage somewhere in my head. Like real talk. And you know what I'm saying? Life might have been fine and going on, but you know what I mean? I may have come into conversations or had confrontations or disagreements with my husband that may look a lot differently if I hadn't been able to recognize my triggers. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of things would look different if I hadn't gone through this study. For sure. I just look forward to, going through it again. And even my role that I played, I was technically a co-leader. But here, the truth of the matter is that I really feel like I didn't lead or co-lead anything. I felt like more of a just support. And I got enjoyment out of that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously I was able to share my story again and, and things that I had learned from going through the study, but sometimes not. I've also learned, as much as I'm talking about finding my voice and being able to advocate for myself and to speak up. There's also something that is powerful about keeping quiet too in certain moments as well. And not to always have something to say. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes it's okay just to be. It's okay to be. So yeah.
From, going through this experience and recognizing power of your voice and taking that power back, basically, what advice would you have for someone out there that may be in this space that you were thinking back, dialing back to in your mind pre the study and, and doing the work, how, those emotions and everything built within you, as well as, like you said, you're stifling your voice. What advice would you give to someone that doesn't know where to start, what to do, that may be feeling convicted, that may not feel like they have someone they can talk to? They may not even have this study available where they can go through, but what is something that they can hold on to let them know it's okay, there are others out there that understands and recognizes where they are, and that they understand that those are the feelings of being shamed, but you don't have to be, and there's support for you. Like, I don't know if that's loaded, but what would you offer or what would you say to someone right now that's going through? What would you say to the OU?
Dang. Okay. Yo. So I think the first thing I would say is, when we're talking about the topic of abortion, that yes, there is automatically a scarlet letter that is associated with that topic. That is your story. Know that, number one, to always remember that you are loved by God. That is the most important thing. That you are loved by God. and that his love covers a multitude of sin. And that includes abortion. Now, I can go down a rabbit hole of talking about, okay, whether people view abortion as sin or a choice, and I'll give my opinion on that here in a second. But there's a loss of life. Life is taken, right? So it's murder, okay? If I'm just going to be frank about it, right? But that does not make that sin greater than another sin. And so because you are loved by him, that covers that sin, okay? And you do not have to walk around in guilt and shame carrying that burden, because he died on the cross for your sin, and he died one time. That's it. He had to keep going back, being re-resurrected. He died once and for all. So it is done. It is covered. Okay. Now, that doesn't, obviously we know that you still carry the thought of that child or maybe that experience. And what I would say is, if you don't know anyone, shoot, hit me up, Terrianforreal@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, and I would love to help get you connected wherever you are, because there are, like, I don't want to say like chapters, but there are groups all over the world, literally all over the world, that do this particular study, and help get you connected with the group to be able to walk through this study. If you are currently right now, I think, facing the choice, I would say hit me up again, and I can see if I can try to connect you with a pregnancy resource center. There are options. There are options, and loss of life doesn't have to be one of them. So there are other options. So hit me up, TERRIAN, the number 4, REEL, Terrianforreal@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you. I would love to be able to try to help get you connected, plug you in with women all over the world, to help walk you through this study. And the other thing is, knowing that you're not alone. You're not alone. The numbers don't lie. And as many women that you come into contact with, I think it's 1 in 4. I may be wrong. I think it's 1 in 4. I think that's what the ratio is. You've come into contact with a lot of women where this is their story, and they're walking around carrying this burden, and God wants you to let it go. He wants you to let it go. You can let it go without letting go of the memory of your child, but you can let the burden of guilt and shame, you can let that go. So yeah, my other thing that I was going to say about the whole like sin pro-choice thing, I'm going to say something very provocative real quick, and you may have to edit this out.
No, this is your story. This is, we are here to share our stories, and, you feel to say what's on your mind.
My stance on the woman's right to choose is I am both pro-choice and pro-life. And here's what I mean by that. I am pro-life in the sense that I believe that every life is precious. Okay. The unborn, the child, the Black life, the old life. It is all precious. Okay. It is all valuable. I'm not an all lives matter, if you know what I mean. And you know what I mean when I say all lives matter, because you know what I mean when I say that. Right. Yes, all life matters, but I'm not an all lives matter. Anyway, so from womb to tomb, and everything else in between.
Yes.
That it is all precious and valuable to God. So that's what I mean when I say I'm pro-life. But I'm also pro-choice, because I believe that God is pro-choice. What do I mean by that, Terrian? Well, what I mean by that is, when you think about from the moment that God created the earth and he created human beings, he never once made us do anything against our will. Okay. He always gave us the right to choose. Now it is up to us whether we choose life or death. Okay. That's the difference. We all get to choose, life or death. And I urge you to always choose life, but you always have a choice.
That's profound.
That's that on that.
I'm not mad at it. Yes. Thank you for being open and honest and transparent and man, all the things. I have one final question, and it's just for those who haven't necessarily had that experience or don't know what that experience looks like. But to be on the side of wanting to support those and support in a way that, you guys, when you support someone, no matter what it is that they've gone through and face, you always want to do that out of love.
Yes.
Free of judgment, because we all have our own past experience and burdens that we done laid down and done and experienced. And we all have our own stories. So none of us is short or removed from some sin, because we've all lived a sinful life. We were born sinful.
That's right.
I'm not going to go down that route. But
preach to us afternoon.
But my question more so is for people, just for myself, like, how can, someone like me support individuals that are going through or have experienced or considering?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is this, just like with any other topic or anything, if you're wanting to get involved in supporting, I think the first thing you have to do is educate yourself on the facts, and understand the numbers and understand the traumas that are produced from these events. And then the other thing I would say is, a lot of times there may be a certain thing that, you know what I mean? Like a certain subject or cause or something like that we feel drawn to. And so we always lead with that. And I would say, I think with any situation, we've got to learn how to lead with seeing people as people first, getting to know people just as people. Because the truth of the matter is, you can see one segment or know one segment of a person's story, but what was going on before that maybe led up to that, or what led up to the decision of them making that choice. That tends to be insightful and helpful and helps you to be able to empathize with that individual as to maybe why they made that choice, and then why they feel the way that they feel post-abortion. So I think, just getting to know that person, getting to know them and learning their story. And then I think from there, I think it studies like this, I guess I'll say the name of it. It's called Surrendering the Secret. Surrendering the Secret is the name of the study. Anyway, but connecting that individual maybe with someone else who that is part of their story. Because 9 times out of 10, you probably know at least two women that this is their story. And more, I guarantee it's more, but at least 2 women that this is part of their story. And for the women who this is part of the story, don't suffer in silence. Don't suffer in silence. There are so many of us out here. There are a lot of us out here. And you don't have to suffer in silence alone. And so for the women who want to come along and support, then that's just what you do. If it's just sitting and holding the hand and letting that woman cry or share her story, that is more than enough. Because the truth of the matter is, those of us who have faced this experience know all too well there are people on both extremes, right? And the people who really think that they're being right about this situation probably do the most harm and damage with some of the nonsense they be having going on. And so you're doing more harm when you're, you know what I mean? You think you're speaking truth and there is no love connected to it whatsoever. And I'm telling you right now, you can speak truth to me all day long. But if you ain't no kind of love attached to that, I ain't trying to hear nothing you got to say to me. Nothing. So at that point, the conversation is ended before it even started.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gotta lead with love. We've got to lead with empathy. We can also speak truth into the matter that abortion breaks God's heart, and whatever breaks God's heart should break our hearts too. But there is redemption. Okay. And this is not something that a part of you that is broken and it cannot be repaired. It is very repairable. Extremely. He died for this. Okay. So know that you are redeemable, that you have value, your child's life has value, your story has value, and you can move forward.
Amen. Amen. And amen again.
3 amens.
Yes. Thank you. 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 Thank you for just being open today. And just because also to you, I know what this road has looked like for you to get here and to see you be in this space and open and really sharing this. Y'all don't know what strength Terrian has from going through this and getting to this place. It takes time and a lot of self-forgiving and just a lot of work, a lot of healing. And, this is just not us just getting on the mic and just telling a story. Like, this was a full experience that, it still lives through her. And the fact that she opened up to share this is just wonderful within itself, because it's wonderful in so many ways, but especially for her and for the many women and men that she touches by, open and sharing our story. Because, that's what more so what our stories are for. They're often not sometimes for us, they're for us to share, because we don't know how we're encouraging someone to move just from moving through our own and sharing that experience. We're all connected, I believe. We were born to be, to connect.
Absolutely.
And how we learn and grow and evolve as individuals is often more so than not is through our stories and our experiences that we share with one another. And so to get into a space where you can get to that point, y'all, it's so amazing. I encourage you and move you, whoever is that's listening to this right now, is that I'm not saying that, you got to get out and you got to get on the mic, you got to, spread it to the masses, but there may just be that one person that is in your path that you are here to touch just by your story. And you gotta be open enough to let that out and let that go. And you just don't know how helping someone else really moves you.
And I don't mean to cut you off. Just one other brief thing. You just said it because you alluded to. I know this show we tend to cater to Black women, but even we've got a few good men that listen in too. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of times they are the forgotten party in this. And I'm not talking about like a man telling a woman what to do with her body, but a lot of times the young men and the men who are a part of this process, sometimes they're not given an option or a choice either. And so sometimes they suffer in silence as well. They really, really do. And so, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to all the men out there that this may be part of their story as well. Because we talk about the woman so often because she is the one that's carrying the child. But the truth of the matter is that there are a lot of fathers out there who are hurting too.
Yes. All right. Well, again, if you want to connect and reach out to Terrian, we'll include everything in the show notes, but please reach out to her at terrianforreal@gmail.com, and it's TERRRIAN, the number 4, and real as in like movie reel. Y'all know Terrian. That's REEL @gmail.com.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to share before we wrap up?
No, that was it. Thank you for, man, but Thank you for letting me do this. This is actually the second time we attempted to record this particular episode, but the time was the time was now. This was the right time for sure, for sure. So no, thank you for allowing me to do this today.
I'm honored to know you're, facilitator for the evening. No, I'm honored to be the person to interview, but I hope to be your cousin too, because I look up to you in so many ways, and I'm just amazed that the woman that you are. So, yeah, keep on.
That means a lot. It really does. Keep on, keep it on. Hey, I'm here for it.
All right. Well, you guys, I think that's about it for now. Do we want to do your power word for 2020?
I can really quick. Sure.
Power word for 2020.
2020 be, you know what I'm saying? She be moving and shaking, shifting, and you know what I'm saying? Like she be doing the Harlem Shake. I don't know what she don't know what she want to do.
Harlem Shake.
It's 2020 be doing the Harlem
toe-ing, doing the heel, the chicken head.
Exactly. All of that. So in honor of the moving and shaking, my two power words for 2020 are adapt and also contentment. Adapt just because, we've had to learn how to adapt in this changing and ever evolving world. The truth is, regardless of if 2020 had gone the way it was going or not, life is always changing. Life is always evolving, and we have to learn how to adapt and get in where we fit in and make the most of life. And then being in contentment is just to be learning to be content in whatever season that you're in. And for the majority of us right now, it is being content at, doing life differently and being at home more. And so I'm gonna be content in that, and I'm gonna soak it all in, and I'm gonna make the best of it. I'm gonna make the most of it. And also in that contentment, not, being lackadaisical, but just being content in whatever is going on and being grateful. You know what I'm saying? In the moments that I've been allowed to have and being allowed to see and witness. So yeah.
Amen. Adapt and content.
Yeah.
Add it to the list.
Yes.
Any projects or special works in the near future? We gonna catch you behind a screen or recording some scenes? We
might catch some recordings or something like that. I don't know.
Trying to get you on air.
Trying to get me on air. Well, keep your eyes and your ears open for sure. That's yeah. We'll see what happens.
Wide. I got 4 of them.
Hey, me too. Me too. Hey, Nikon still has all their stuff up, so I've actually been, trying to perfect my craft and glean some knowledge from Nikon. Thankfully, they still have all their videos up. So, yeah.
Come on, Melanated Conversations photo shoot when we can open back up in the world.
Okay.
All right, y'all. Thanks again to our special guest today, Terrian Jones, for sharing her story. And just continue to tune in with us every week. And again, if you have a story that you want to share, feel free to send us a note at info@melanatedconversations.com. Our aim is always to amplify the voices and stories of Black women, share our lessons, and celebrate our successes. So I'm going to keep on moving along in that mission. But we're going to wrap here today. And, until next time.
Melanate on that.
Amen.
Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed our chat today. Keep the conversation going by heading to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leaving us a review.
Have a story of your own to share? Email us at info@melanatedconversations.com or connect with us on social media at Melanated Conversations. Till next time, keep raising your voice.
Are you someone who's ready to get your voice out into the world? Have you been considering starting your own podcast and not sure of all the things it takes to launch your show? Well, at Levels to Lunch, they've done all the groundwork to help you turn your dreams into streams. With professional knowledge and experience in strategy, recording, editing, and presenting, they have all the resources to help you in your journey in launching your show. From the do-it-yourselfer to that time-strapped podcaster that just needs to get it done, they walk you through every step to get your show launched and ready for the world. So go ahead and take that next step and make your podcasting dreams a reality by visiting levels2lunch.com. Again, that's www.levels2lunch.com.